You still have children. They're alive. They are somewhere in the same city or the next state over, and they will not see you. This is a particular kind of loss, because there is nothing to bury and no ending to move towards. You grieve a child who is still here, and the world struggles to understand why you're grieving at all. This is happening to a lot of fathers today, and almost all of the advice they find lands in one of two unhelpful places. It either tells them to fight harder in court, as though the right legal maneuver will make a child want them again, or it tells them to stay calm and wait, which a man hears as do nothing. Neither is much use at 6 o'clock in the morning when you're staring at a phone that does not ring. What follows in today's video is built differently. It is organized around the 4 places where you're actually at. We'll talk about the legal process. We'll talk about the time you do not have with your children, the time you do have with them, and the world you live in day to day. After that, there's a harder area, where we step through some common scenarios you might be encountering within your own relationship dynamic, such as when a child is not just rejecting you, but they're visibly coming apart while living with her. Today, we'll aim to keep things mostly about what to do, because doing is what keeps a man upright, and because there is more within your control than the despair will let you believe. And for those of you who are new here, this is Stand Again, a lived experience platform for male victims of family violence. Abuse is not limited to one gender, but on this channel, we focus on the male victims of family violence to ensure that their experiences are recognized and their voices are heard. If this content helps you, please like, subscribe, and add the words Stand Again into the chat. Those 2 words might just help a silent listener realize they are not alone in this. First, let's talk about what parental alienation actually is, because the name changes how you fight it. Parental alienation is the deliberate turning of a child against a parent who has done nothing to deserve it. It is the bad-mouthing, the rewriting of shared history, the small daily erosions that teach a child their father is unsafe, unloved, or not worth the trouble. Your own relationship with coercive control gives you a head start in understanding it, because alienation is the same control continued through the children. The person doing it is not lashing out in pain. She is pursuing an aim. And the aim is to sever you from the people who matter most, because that is the deepest wound available to her and the one the system is least equipped to see. It helps to separate 2 things that often get lumped in together here. First is alienation targets the bond, the child's love for you and their memory of who you are. But there is a second tactic that targets the practical role instead. That's the gatekeeping, the disruptive handovers, the undermining of your authority, the positioning of you as the visiting parent, even when the orders say otherwise. You may be facing one or both of these. The bond and the roles are attacked by different means, and knowing which you are dealing with sharpens what you do about it. What you are not dealing with is a child who has weighed the evidence and chosen themselves. A child caught in this is being harmed, and the rejection is a symptom of that harm. Holding that in mind is not sentiment. It is the thing that keeps you responding to a child in trouble rather than to an enemy. And that distinction will shape every good decision you make from here. Let's now talk about your legal ground, where you build the case, not just survive it. A quick disclaimer, what follows is guidance, not legal advice or strategy. I'm not a lawyer. Consult your lawyer first about your unique circumstances. This is the part where a man who needs to act has somewhere real to go. The instinct to do something is sound. It only goes wrong when it has no target. This is all about giving it one. First thing, build a timeline. A single dated record of what was said and what was done. Every cancelled or obstructed handover, every call that was blocked or cut short, every event you were shut out of, like the school concert or the birthday or the medical appointment you were not told about. Every moment a child's words suddenly carried an adult's phrasing, or the relationship flipped from warm to hostile with no explanation that came from the child. Date each entry in your journal. Keep the messages, the emails, the texts that show the pattern. Alienation is established by accumulation, not by a single incident. So the record is what you use to prove the pattern, and you build it one line at a time. Keep that record clean and keep it factual, and keep it separate from where you process the pain. This is the one piece of discipline worth holding to, and it's a practical rather than an emotional one. A timeline that doubles as a diary of your anguish becomes something you reread at midnight until it hollows you out, and it becomes less useful to a lawyer. One document here is for evidence. Somewhere else entirely is where you put your grief. Keep them apart protects both the case and you. Next, name it accurately and early to the people who can act on it. Get the timeline to a family lawyer who understands parental alienation, because the pattern means little to someone who reads it as just ordinary post-separation friction. Ask for the specific remedies that exist rather than vague relief. Orders that prohibit the named conduct, a court-appointed expert or family report, structured or supervised arrangements, and in serious cases, changes to where the children live. These are concrete asks, and a man who arrives with a clear, child-focused account and a clean record presents very differently from one who arrives angry and disorganized. Next, comply with every order. Exactly, even when your ex does not. This is not about being the better person for its own sake. The contrast here is the evidence. A father who follows the orders while the other parent obstructs them builds a documented pattern that speaks for itself, and he denies her the story that he is the difficult one. Where she breaches, record it and raise it through your lawyer rather than retaliating, because retaliation is the material she is hoping to collect. Next, let the lawyer carry your fight for you so you don't have to carry it through every hour of your life. This is the practical reason to instruct someone good and then let them work. The fight needs a container. Without one, it leaks into your sleep, your job, your every waking thought, and it burns the steadiness that the rest of this depends upon. Now let's talk about what you do when you are not with them. This is about staying present without pressure. Most of an alienated father's time is time apart, and it is where the temptation to do harm to your own cause is the strongest. The work here is to leave evidence that you did not abandon or leave your child, in a form that asks nothing of a child who is not allowed to give it. First, you need to keep reaching out directly to your child and keep each contact light, a short message that carries warmth and no demand. Something like, thinking of you, or saw a game today and thought of you, or hope the week is going well. No questions about the other house, no guilt, no pleas for a response. The point is a steady drumbeat of a presence and a record for the child and for the court that you kept the door open every single week, regardless of the silence on the other side. Next, mark the milestones, whether or not they are received. The birthday card, the small gift, the message on the first day of school. Sent and ignored, sent and returned, it does not matter. The pattern is the message, and one day it becomes a history a child can look back on and read correctly. Next, keep their place in your life intact. The bedroom kept, the routines ready, the photographs still on the wall. A child who eventually turns back towards you should find that coming home requires no apology and no negotiation, only an open door. You are keeping the lights on in a house they can walk back into. And lastly, build something for them to find later. This is the most useful answer to the question every alienated father asks, which is, what do I do with all this love and nowhere to send it? Open an email account in their name and write emails to them. Not a record of your case, and nothing about the conflict. Instead, send them memories, photographs, the things you would have told them as they grew, the advice you wish you could give them now, saved for when they are ready to hear it. Save the details of the email account somewhere safe, ready to give to them when they are ready to open it and have a look through what you have sent. It cannot be intercepted. It cannot be thrown back at you. It does not depend on anyone's permission having an email account. It's a place to keep being their father when you are not allowed to be one in person. And it will be there whole and waiting on the day they come looking for who you really were. Next, let's talk about when you are with them. This is the time to be the father they want to return to. When you do get time, every instinct screams at you to use it, to explain what really happened, to correct the lies, to show them the evidence and win back the truth in the precious little hours you have. This is the most natural impulse a wrong father has, and acting on it is how good fathers lose the little ground they have left. The time is for the relationship, not for the record. A child who learns that being with dad means tension, sad talks, and pressure to pick a side will not want to come back. And every reunion spent litigating the case confirms the very story you are trying to undo. Cramming a month of corrections into a single afternoon does not reach them. It frightens them, and it deepens the loyalty bind that is already tearing them in half. So, do the ordinary things, and let there be nothing to report back. Cook, drive, watch the match, be boring and good. The aim is for time with you to feel like the easiest, safest place in their week, because the research on what reopens these relationships is consistent. A child moves back towards the parent who is calm, normal, and undemanding to be around. Keep them out of the middle. Don't send messages through them. Do not quiz them about the other house. Do not ask them to keep secrets or to choose. They are already carrying more than a child should, and the parent who adds to that load loses them, while the parent who lightens it becomes a refuge. When something hostile does come out of their mouth, do not argue it down. Meeting it with heat proves the caricature they have been handed. Stay even. Let them see that the man they were warned about turned out to be the safe parent. Let's now talk about your social world. This is where it's about protecting your standing in your network. Alienation typically costs a man twice. He loses the children, then he loses standing, because the world still reads a father without his kids as a father who failed them. Managing that is not vanity. Isolation is a real danger here, and the people around you are a part of how you survive this intact. So you need to decide your line before you are asked. You will get the questions from colleagues, from new acquaintances, from people who mean well. So have a short, calm sentence ready. Something like, "The kids and I aren't in contact right now. It's a hard situation and I'm working on it." That closes the subject without inviting pity or a cross-examination, and without trashing their mother in words that can travel back to the children or into a courtroom. Said evenly, it ends the conversation and keeps your dignity. You need to choose a few people to tell properly, and do not make everyone carry it. A small number who get the full truth and can hold it. The wider circle gets the line. This protects you from having the same gutting conversation on a loop, and it keeps your closest relationships as a place of support rather than constant re-injury. Next, do not litigate the case in public or online. I'll say that one more time because it's very critical. Do not litigate the case in public or online. It rarely persuades anyone, it can surface in court proceedings, and it tends to make the person posting look exactly as unstable as the other side claims. Whatever you need to vent, vent in private, to your few, or to someone paid to listen. No more. Next, hold the line with the minimizers without burning the bridge. Someone will say to you, "At least you get some weekends," or "Kids always come around," or "Don't worry, they'll come back eventually." It will land like a slap. And the "come back eventually" line stings most because it asks you to sit still and hope while your children are slipping away. You do not need to educate those people or cut them off. A simple, "It's a lot harder than that, and I'd rather not get into it," keeps the relationship and protects you from that sting. And then lastly, keep showing up to the parts of life that have nothing to do with your children. The work, the sport, the friendships, the gym. A man who vanishes socially loses the network he will need on the day the door reopens, and he hands loneliness a clear run at him. Staying connected is not moving on or giving up. It is keeping yourself whole enough to be there when you are needed. Let's now talk through a few common scenarios. The 4 areas we just went through hold across almost every version of these scenarios. There are, however, a few common situations that change the emphasis on what you focus on. I'm going to take my time on the first 2 because they're actually quite critical, and then I'll rattle through a few others, so bear with me. The first thing we're going to talk about is when your child accuses you of something that never happened. Sometimes a child says back to you the things they have been told. It can land as the most painful moment of all because the words are coming out of a face you love. Before anything else, one line has to be clear, because the rest of this depends on it. What follows is about the situation where the claim is genuinely false and you know it. Children also sometimes say true things, and a child's distress or an accusation is never on its own proof of anything either way. If there is any chance a concern is real, it must be heard and taken seriously, not managed as though it was a tactic. Nothing here is permission to wave away something true. With that held firmly, it helps to separate 2 very different kinds of false statements from your child, because they do not call for the same response. The first kind is about your character, where they may say things like, "You never loved us, you always treated us badly, you are a terrible father." These are painful, but there is no specific event in them to investigate, only a story about who you are that the child has absorbed from your former partner. Arguing the story rarely helps, and demanding they take it back tends to push them to defend it harder. What serves better is to stay calm, decline to retaliate, and answer the hurt underneath rather than the verdict on top. You can be gentle with your child without agreeing with what they said about you. Your steadiness, shown again and again rather than argued once, is what speaks against the story, because a child gets to compare what they were told about you with what they actually experience of you. Keep being the experience that does not match the story. The second kind is different in nature and has to be treated differently. An allegation of a specific act, such as, "You used to hit us," or "You did something to us." This is not a characterization you can simply absorb with warmth. A specific false allegation of abuse is serious, and with real legal and child protection weight, and a warm non-denial of it can later be read as acceptance. So in the moment, stay calm, do not respond with anger or interrogation, both of which make things worse and can be turned against you. You can say once, plainly and without heat, that it did not happen and that you will always keep them safe. And then leave it rather than pressing the child or grilling them about where that came from. Do not confront the child or cross-examine them. What matters most with this kind of statement happens outside the room. Write down exactly what was said, when, and in what context, and then take that to your lawyer. Because a child repeating a specific false allegation of abuse is a development for the legal process to handle, not a wound to be managed through conversation with your child. The calm in the moment protects the child and it protects you. The documentation protects the truth. Keep the 2 separate, and do not try to win the legal point in front of your child. The next scenario is when it's not just rejection, and it's when your child is being harmed by your ex-partner. This is the scenario where the rules begin to change, because sometimes a child doesn't just reject you, they start to come apart. They withdraw from everybody except the one abusive parent. They drop out of school, or they cut off their grandparents and cousins and everybody on your side of the equation, and a clinician suddenly enters the picture, who only ever hears one account and starts reinforcing the very isolation that is hurting the child. You are no longer watching a child refuse you, You are watching a child be harmed, pulled into the same machinery that once closed around you. And the powerlessness of it is a different order of pain. When it reaches this point, the category of what you are doing changes. This stops being about repairing a relationship and becomes about a child's welfare. And that shift opens actions that were not available before. First, you need to document the deterioration as evidence of harm, not just of rejection. The date of the school dropout, the withdrawal from every relationship but one, the rejection of an entire side of the family, the scripted adult phrasing in a young person's mouth. A child cutting off a whole branch of their family and rewriting their own history are recognized markers of severe alienation, and they describe a child in trouble. Dated and factual, this is exactly what a court or an expert needs to see. Next, you need to get onto the clinical record, calmly and in writing. If you hold parental responsibility, you are generally entitled to be involved in your child's medical care and to give information to a treating clinician. A professional acting only on one parent's account may not know there is another side to the story. Write to them. Set out the history and the alienation context plainly without attacking the other parent. And keep a copy. A measured letter strengthens your position and informs someone who may be missing half the picture. An angry one gets used against you, which is the only reason to keep it measured. The calm version is a stronger version. You need to take that deterioration back to the legal process as a change in circumstances. A child coming apart is a grounds to return to court or to push for a court-appointed expert who understands parental alienation, precisely because the child's well-being has materially worsened. General therapists frequently miss alienation, and a clinician captured by one parent's story can entrench the harm. So ask specifically for an assessor who knows what they are looking at. Severe findings can lead to structured reunification or to changes in living arrangements. Name these remedies. Next, you need to gather the accounts of people who saw it. Teachers, the school, coaches, family, anyone who knew the child before and then witnessed the change in their behaviour. Neutral third-party accounts are what allow an expert to tell genuine estrangement from manufactured alienation, and they exist now in people's memories and records if you go and collect them. And lastly, then you need to hold an honest limit, because pretending it is not there will break you. You cannot directly reach inside the other household and stop what is happening. What you can do is build the welfare case, get the right expert involved, stay on the clinical record, preserve the evidence and the witnesses, and keep yourself reachable and whole for the child underneath these symptoms. Those are the levers that exist. Pour everything into them and let go of the ones that do not move, because exhausting yourself against a locked door costs your child the steady father they will need when it finally does open. Let's now rapid fire through a few other common scenarios. I'll go through these ones fairly quickly, but if there are any in this list that you want me to dwell on or spend a bit more time on, then drop it into the comments and I can do another video on it. First is gatekeeping, which is when she controls all access and then reframes it as though it's protection. The gatekeeper presents every obstruction as concern for the children, which makes it hard to challenge and easier for others to accept. Your answer here is the record. Document each instance of access controlled or access denied. Keep complying with what's in the court orders, and let the documented contrast between her gatekeeping and your steadiness do the work in front of an expert who knows the pattern. Next is if your child requests no contact. This is when your child tells you to stop contacting them. This one turns your decency against you. A good father hears stop and wants to respect it. And the parental alienation is counting on exactly that, because the demand is almost always made under duress, a way for the child to manage the loyalty bind rather than a free choice their own. Caving to it completely abandons a child who cannot say what they actually feel. Overriding it and pushing harder confirms the story that you do not listen. The path between the two is a presence that is steady, brief, and free of any pressure to respond. You keep the light on without standing on the doorstep. And the memory account, where you send emails to them but you don't give them access to those emails just yet, matters most here, because writing to them crosses no boundaries and asks nothing of them. Two limits need to hold firm. If the child is an adult or an older teenager making a sustained, settled request for space, respect it. Send one warm message making clear the door is always opened and the next move is theirs. Then let it be. Because honouring it protects your dignity and can leave more room for them to return than constant contact ever would. And if there is a protection order or a legal boundary, follow it exactly, because contact across that line stops being love and becomes the evidence the other side is waiting for. In both cases, you're not giving up. You are keeping yourself reachable and whole and leaving the way back clear. If they are teenagers, they can refuse you themselves. Courts grow reluctant to force contact as children get older. So your legal leverage softens and the weight shifts to staying reachable and undemanding. The next scenario is when your ex-partner moves away with your children or she is about to. A move interstate or overseas changes everything about how contact works, and it is also one of the areas where you have more standing than you might think. Relocating with the children generally requires either your agreement or the court's approval, and a parent who moves without it can be ordered to bring the children back. If she has already gone or has announced she is going, get legal advice quickly, because timing matters here. You can apply to the court to stop a move before it happens or to address one that has already occurred, and the sooner you act, the stronger your position. If the children are taken overseas without consent, the stakes are higher still. That move can breach the law, and with countries party to the Hague Convention, trigger orders for their return. Document the move and raise it with your lawyer without delay rather than waiting to see how it all settles. Two things matter for the case itself. First, keep complying with the existing orders and keep your own conduct clean, because a court weighing a relocation looks hard at each parent's willingness to support the children's relationship with the other, and your steady, reasonable conduct is part of that picture. Second, if the distance becomes a reality you have to live with, the shape of contact changes rather than the ending. Long-distance arrangements usually move towards larger blocks of time in school holidays instead of frequent short visits, held together by regular structured video and phone contact in between. Push for that structure to be set out clearly rather than left to goodwill, and lean hard on the written presence of the memory account to carry the relationship across the gap in the meantime. The next common scenario is special occasions. These are the days that are about you that when they arrive can gut you. Things like Father's Day or your birthday or the day a father is supposed to be celebrated typically land the hardest because the silence on those days is pointed. Do not let those days ambush you. Plan the day before it comes so you are doing something and you are with people rather than alone with a phone that does not ring. Mark it towards your children in the memory account, a note for the day so the love has somewhere to go. And let the people close to you know it is a hard date so you are not carrying it in secret. The day will hurt regardless. It hurts less when you have decided in advance how you will spend it. And lastly, when it feels like every system has failed you. Police, schools, doctors, the court, a therapist, and none of them saw it or acted. This is the most common and most crushing parts of the experience of parental alienation, and the despair it breeds is its own danger, because a man who believes nothing works stops doing the things that do. The practical answer is narrow and real. Keep building the record regardless of who has so far ignored it, because the next decision maker may be the one who reads it properly. Get to the people who are trained to recognize parental alienation rather than the general services that routinely miss it. An alienation literate lawyer, a court-appointed expert who knows the pattern. Bring documentation rather than emotion to each new professional, because the clean account is what travels. The institutions moving slowly or missing it the first time is not proof that your effort is wasted. It is the reason the effort has to be patient and aimed at the right doors. None of all of this is a lever you can pull and make your child love you again tomorrow. The honest, research-backed picture is quieter and more durable than that. Across the studies of families who find their way back, the most consistent thing that reopens the door is a child's own readiness, arriving in their own time, often years later, frequently when they reach an age where they begin to question what they were told. You cannot set that clock. What you can do is make sure that when that clock goes off, you are still standing where they left you. This is what every part of this is for. A clean evidence lawyer carrying into the fight the weekly message into the silence and the archive being built for a day you cannot see. The ordinary pressure-free hours when you do get them. The calm line that protects your name and the network you refuse to dissolve. You are not waiting passively for a miracle. You are doing the steady, unglamorous work of remaining reachable and remaining whole, so that the father a child comes looking for is the one who was always there exactly where they left him, with the light still on. This is Stand Again, lived experience platform for male survivors of family violence. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice might just help another man find his. If you're looking for one-on-one support, you can book coaching with a member of the Stand Again team. Simply visit standagain.com.au, where you will also find grounded information on surviving and recovering from family violence as a man. As always, remember that no matter how many times you've been knocked down, you can stand again.